Hello, my name is Dr. Luke Bell. I'm lecturer in molecular horticulture at the University of Reading in the United Kingdom. This is a screencast of material originally made available for the module Principles of Horticulture and Crop Production from the years 2020 to 2025. Please note that some of the details may now be outdated.
So the learning outcomes for this screencast are to describe the characteristic features of cauliflower plants, give examples of different cauliflower cultivars and their characteristics and growth requirements, understand the fertilization and irrigation requirements of a cauliflower crop, and give examples of different disorders affecting curd formation. Explain the process of harvesting and post-harvest handling requirements of cauliflower. So in terms of the characteristics of the cauliflower plant, so cauliflower is part of the botrytis group of Brassicales. So the cauliflower itself is what's called a curd. So curd is a tissue formed of undifferentiated flowering heads, and so that kind of distinguishes it from broccoli, which is differentiated flowering heads. So you can see the individual flowering heads forming, whereas in cauliflower it's just an undifferentiated mass of tissue. It's thought to have arisen as a mutation in cabbage plants, and so it's been then utilized ever since for this trait. Like broccoli, it can be cultivated as an annual or as a biennial depending on the cultivar. Early growth is similar to cabbage and broccoli. Like broccoli, cauliflower requires vernalization before flowering tissues will develop, so the plants must be harvested before the curds start to elongate and become diffuse. So in this slide you can see a cauliflower plant starting to flower. So the head of the cauliflower has completely kind of disappeared and has differentiated into the flowering tissues through the formation of different stems. At flowering, the plants are around about 1 meter tall and ½ meter wide. Unlike Brassicales varieties like broccoli and cabbage, cauliflowers are generally self-incompatible, so they can't self-pollinate, and they require cross-pollination in order to be fertilized. The curds of early cultivars develop after around about 15 to 20 leaves have formed, and the rate of this can be dependent on the environment, so the ambient growing temperature and also the exposure to sunlight. Curds of late cultivars will develop after around about 25 leaves have formed. Leaf colour varies from greyish blue to green, and some cultivars develop wrapper leaves which protect the curd, so they kind of wrap around the head of the cauliflower, similar to how the wrapper leaves of cabbage do. So both open pollinated and hybrid cultivars are still common on the market for cauliflower. Most commercial cauliflower that's grown globally is of a white colour or a creamish colour. This is the most economically important type, but some cultivars have been specially bred to tolerate high temperatures and humidities in tropical regions. There are numerous different colour variations of cauliflower, and they can look quite striking, and some people question whether they're actually natural or the product of some kind of human interference, but they are actually naturally occurring variations and mutations within cauliflower which have been selected for and bred over many years and possibly even centuries. So particularly well-known coloured types include the green type that you can see just on the left of this slide. There's also yellow and golden type cauliflowers, and also the distinctive purple cauliflower, and it's thought that these particular cultivars have again originated from parts of Italy. Perhaps one of the most famous and striking cauliflower cultivars is the Romanesco cauliflower. So this originates from Italy. So Romanesco is also known as Roman cauliflower. It has this distinctive curd formation, where the curd, rather than developing in a kind of mottled clumps of tissue, develops these distinctive pyramidal shapes in these fractal patterns. And then again, it's been questioned whether this is natural, but again, it's the product of human breeding and selection of different mutations which have arisen over many centuries. Romanescos are usually this kind of vivid green color, but there are also white variations as well. So the important defining characteristics of mainstream cauliflower cultivars are its head size, shape, compactness, texture and color. Uniformity is important for the fresh market, so all the cauliflowers harvested from a single crop should ideally be of a similar size and weight. Cream coloured curd cultivars are most commonly used in the processed market. In terms of their fertilizer requirements, so cauliflower plants prefer deep loamy soils, but they can be grown on sandy soils as well. Optimal pH is between 6 and 6.5, but they can tolerate as low as 5.5. Plants have a high nitrogen requirement, and deficiencies cause low yields. Nitrogen can be applied at planting and again at heading, similar in the same way as for broccoli. Cauliflowers grown on organic soils again require less nitrogen. Optimal nitrogen ensures the maximum size and density of the curd. Overnutrition of nitrogen can cause the heads to become open and diffuse and therefore unmarketable. Like broccoli, cauliflower has a high boron and molybdenum requirement. The deficiency results in the chlorosis of the leaves, as was seen in the last screencast for broccoli, but also this distinctive stem cracking. So if you cut open a cauliflower plant which is suffering from boron deficiency, you'll see the inside of the stem has this kind of hollow and almost rotten looking kind of appearance. And this, if it's severe enough, can result in the death of the plant, and it also makes the sale of the cauliflower head impossible. Deficiency is particularly a problem on low pH sandy soils, as the low pH blocks the uptake of sufficient boron into the plant. Cauliflowers can be transplanted, but stress at this stage can cause premature heading in the cultivars. They're typically raised in peat blocks, the same as with cabbage and broccoli. But the transplants are ready between about 4 and 6 weeks after sowing. As you can see in this slide, the plants can be grown on raised beds, and the spacing can vary from 30 to 60 centimeters to 60 and 90 centimeters in the rows and between the rows. But again, the spacing requirements may be dictated by the end purpose. Warm weather delays the head formation and flowering of cauliflowers and promotes vegetative growth. So premature curd formation is a problem for annual cultivars and tropical cultivars, where they're exposed to warm temperatures too soon, and this accelerates their growth and they begin to flower. In cool temperatures favour curd formation. So if an annual cultivar is grown, it's generally best if the summer isn't too hot. Winter cultivars, where they have long exposure over the winter to cold, will be vernalized, but it's important that they have a high rate of vegetative growth before the coldest weather sets in, so that therefore they have a large leaf surface area to promote growth in the spring and therefore maximize curd formation. So when the curd is developing, the leaf tissues and the growth of the leaf tissues is inhibited. Optimal curd formation is achieved between around about 16 to 18 degrees C. Curd quality declines above 20 degrees C. Tropical cultivars have been developed, as I mentioned, and they can tolerate temperatures up to about 30 degrees C, but the curd quality is generally much more variable as they suffer from these differing rates of maturity, and the heads can be much more open and less dense. I'll talk a bit now about disorders within the curd and different conditions which can make the crop unsaleable. So one of the most common ones is something called buttoning, and this is caused by premature head development. And as you can see in this slide, there are leaves sort of protruding between the different florets of the cauliflower, and they've started to kind of become more diffuse, and the head of the cauliflower is not as compact. Then we have what's called riciness. So this is a kind of velvety fuzz which kind of covers the floret of the cauliflower and the curd surface. It's thought to be caused by sudden transitions from a cold to warm temperatures. So if you have a kind of cold spell in the spring, which is then shortly followed by warmer temperatures in the summer, you might find that the cauliflowers are starting to develop this kind of condition. There's also a condition known as blindness. So this results from damage being caused to the flowering stem of the cauliflower plant. So if it's exposed to temperatures which are too cold, this may damage that tissue, and even though the plant has been exposed to cold and been vernalized, a curd will fail to develop, and that's because those tissues have essentially been destroyed. Discoloration of curds is also quite a common quality issue. Curds can be damaged by high light intensity and also by different diseases and also environmental stress. Cultivars which have lots of wrapper leaves around the head of the cauliflower are less prone to this kind of sunlight damage, because obviously the leaves are intercepting the light, so the curds aren't directly exposed to the high light intensity. Cauliflower crops require around about 2.5 to 3.8 centimeters of water per week to ensure uninterrupted growth. Again, if soil water content falls too low, this will affect yields. Drought can severely reduce the canopy size and lead to those conditions such as buttoning, as I've mentioned. And stress impacts crop maturation rate and uniformity. So again, when it comes to harvest, this may be a problem because the farmer may have to go through the crop multiple times as the crop matures at different rates. Drip irrigation is preferred, as for the reasons I've stated in the previous screencasts, as the sprinkler irrigation is kind of inefficient and also promotes foliar disease. So similar to cabbage harvesting, cauliflowers are harvested by hand, and they're typically put onto these kinds of specialist tractors with the carousels or conveyor belts on the front. So the cabbages are harvested by hand, typically with a machete, and the heads are cut out of the center of the plants, and the leaves and wrapper leaves are chopped off. They'll then be placed in that conveyor, which will then pass over the back of the tractor and into the compartment on the back, where another team of workers might be packaging and further trimming the cauliflower heads before they're sent to the fresh market. Harvest maturity, the heads typically weigh from about 0.5 to 2 kilograms, and this again depends on the market requirements, and the cauliflower heads may be further graded once they've been harvested and sent to a processing facility. So just kind of showing what happens again a little bit in that immediate post-harvest phase. So the cauliflower heads are quite sensitive to bruising at this point, and it can result in discoloration. So damage at this point also reduces the shelf life and longevity of the cauliflowers. The heads are typically cooled and then stored, but if they're destined for the fresh market, they may not be immediately cooled at all. They'll just go straight to supermarkets. The heads can be sold to processors as well. It's becoming more common for vegetables to be sold as chopped products, and then bagged in those types of products for convenience of the consumer. but this can be detrimental to the shelf life of the product. So post-harvest, cauliflower again has a high respiration rate similar to broccoli. Heads should be stored at 0 degrees C and around about 95 to 98 relative humidity. Under optimum conditions, the heads can be stored for up to 3 weeks, but care should be taken to ensure that the temperatures are not too low, i.e. below about -1 degree C, as this can cause freezing damage to the curds. High humidity helps prevent water loss from the head, but condensation on the inside of the plastic packaging, for example, can cause the tissues to soften and to rot. Shelf life is reduced by about 7 to 10 days if the cauliflower heads aren't stored at the right temperature. So if they're stored above 5 degrees C, then their shelf life will be much shorter. The curds are also sensitive to sunlight, so this exposure can cause discoloration, and so generally they should be kept in the dark. So in summary, cauliflowers are produced for their edible curds, and formation of this tissue is dictated by environmental conditions. Cauliflowers can be grown as annuals or biennials, but all cultivars have a vernalization requirement. Curds can be diverse in shape, size, texture and colour. Plants can suffer from several curd formation disorders and nutrient deficiencies, and cauliflowers are harvested by hand and must be handled and stored properly post-harvest to maintain their quality.